Okay. Hi, everybody. Hello. I really like that I get to see Tim's face and Leslie, who is our new team member, on my team's face. Nobody else feel pressured to join by video, but if you would like to, you are certainly more than welcome. Thank you all so much for joining today. For those of you who don't know me, am the Senior Director for 211 at United Way Worldwide. So I have a really awesome team that works very hard to support all of the 211s across the network, works closely with many, if not most of you on a variety of projects and initiatives and amazing strategies like building a national data platform. So we're excited to talk with you today. I am going to give just a brief overview, which will be redundant for anyone who joined the last town hall. And so I'm going to try to keep it brief. But then most of the time will be spent, as promised, with Andrew Benson, our architect and engineer of the data platform, going through the actual technical deep dive that we promised, and answering any of your questions. So first, just a couple housekeeping notes. Anybody who's on Zoom, you're all experts now because this is the world we live in, so mute yourselves, please, if you're not speaking. If you dialed in only by phone, you are muted, but you can unmute by dialing *6, though we will ask that you not do that until we ask for questions so that everybody can hear. Once I stop talking, I'll be helping to monitor the chat. Feel free to post questions throughout the deep dive webinar today, and I or Josh or Andrew will answer them either in the chat or live. And then last but not least, we are recording today so that we can post the recording and share it with anyone who is on and wants to review, or certainly anybody else on your team or partners of yours, etc. after the fact. So hopefully those of you who are on Zoom can see my screen. Again, if you're not and you're just dialed in, I will do my best to narrate, and we will share the slides within the recording afterwards. So to kick things off and get started, wanted to first level set and make sure we're all talking about the same thing. Several years ago, and in fact, many years before that and before my time, the network and leaders across the network began talking about a shared database or data platform or database repository, depending on which terminology you're using at the time. But that would enable all of the 211s to access each other's resource data in the event of a crisis or an emergency, or to facilitate a multi-211 project, among other things. Since then, as many of you know, there is increased interest from other sectors, namely healthcare, but also government agencies and others, to actually access your community resource data and other data. And not all 211s have an easy way of sharing data. And there isn't a good way right now for multiple 211s to work together and share and exchange data with partners or external customers. So for these reasons and many others, we embarked with what was then the National Operating Group, what is now a National CEO Partnership, and the National 211 Steering Committee, along with Andrew, who I'll introduce in a bit, to actually build a national 211 data platform that would facilitate all of these things. Couple core principles as reminders. The core principles of this platform are, first and foremost, that the 211 data owners retain ownership of their data when participating in or using the platform. So we are not asking you to hand over ownership of your data, rather providing a tool for you to use with it. The platform, we believe, and research indicates, can generate revenue for the network by enabling the sharing of data securely for revenue positive partnerships. So anything like subscribing to a data access to your database like many of you already do, or just supporting a project that you've received a grant or a contract for, etc. The platform is also not meant to replace nor alter the local systems and practices that 2-in-1's use to actually manage your data. So in other words, this is not a replacement tool for your existing resource database. It is rather a platform that sits on top of that and enables a copy of your data to be accessed, shared, exchanged, etc. And then lastly, we have built the platform and are building out the strategy, keeping in mind that the platform above anything else should actually add value to the 2-in-1 network and hopefully reduce duplicative costs that 2-in-1s are currently incurring. So the goal here is for this to be helpful in many different ways, not take away from anything that you're already doing or can do. Just really quickly wanted to call out that there are a lot of different agencies and leaders both within our own network and then funders outside of our network who have contributed to where we are today with the data platform. So this includes, as I said, the CEO partnership that has co-invested in moving the project forward. United Way Worldwide has invested in the platform, but so have our state associations in North Carolina and in California have contributed significantly to the development of the platform. And then we have a number of other funders who have provided grants, in-kind support and advice, and pure donations to further the goals of this platform. So we've raised a good amount of funding, which is what enables us to share this with you today and tell you that we are accelerating development very, very quickly so that this can soon be available to everyone. Later on, I'm going to turn this over to Andrew Benson, but just a quick note that he is, of course, on and has been a strategic partner of ours and really driving this project forward for a long time. Many of you may know Andrew from his time with Ontario 2-in-1 or the work that he's done with our friends in North Carolina and elsewhere. So he is certainly not new to the network, and we're really excited to be continuing to work with him. But as we walk through some of the basics, just keep in the back of your minds that Andrew and his company are really the development partners and strategic partners behind what exists already and what will exist in the near future. And I'll let him do a better job of introducing himself when we get there. So quick overview of the data platform at a high level before we go into the technical deep dive. Again, just for anyone who wasn't on the town hall a couple weeks ago and isn't as familiar. In the initial phase, which is what we are going into and what Andrew will talk through today, there are two main buckets of features and functionality in terms of what can I do with this thing. So for 2-in-1s who come onto the platform, it provides a number of tools and features for sharing and exchanging your data with third parties, powering public-facing websites, participating in national data sharing opportunities. So for example, someone comes to the table and says, we want to subscribe to data nationwide. Here is a lot of money. You become part of that. And then the other category of things is in data visualization and analysis. So you will have access to Power BI, which is a really top-notch tool for visualization, similar to Tableau, if you're not familiar, with custom reporting and dashboards that have been set up for 2-in-1s, in addition to resources to help you actually use Power BI. So these are the two buckets of things that we're driving toward in the near future for 2-in-1s coming onto the platform. Very, very, very basic architecture. This is not what you joined the call looking for if you are a technical person, because this is not a technical architecture visual. But the point of this is really just to reiterate that we are not altering individual database management at a local or state level, but rather enabling you to share a copy of that data into this secure environment. And from there, we can enable a variety of applications or actions from the platform. This, as you can imagine, is much more helpful when talking to non-technical people, probably very, very boring for most of you on the call. So I'm going to walk through just very, very briefly the key use cases, so to speak, that are already in use with the platform and that are probably the most common requests or questions we have been getting, just to give you a little bit more of a concrete idea, again, of what the platform can and will enable for 211s. And then I will turn it over to Andrew, who will take you through how this actually happens and works. So the first thing is this concept of actually exchanging data with third parties. So this is anything from a state government agency to a local partner, a social determinant of health platform like a Unite Us or a NowPow, or really any other entity with whom you want to provide access to your resource data. This can happen in a number of ways that Andrew will talk through, including APIs. But the important piece here is that Worldwide cannot grant access to your data without your permission. The point is that we can enable it as the intermediary, so to speak, if you as a 211 have executed an agreement with a party and you want to share data through the platform. So we do have a few 211s that are already or are exploring sharing access to their resource data with Unite Us, for example, in those types of local agreements. That is one example of how the platform can function and assist. A second use case is the creation of statewide or regional, or name another geography here, databases without you having to actually change which databases the 211s locally are using, nor having to do this type of integration and standardization locally or at a state level. So essentially, because the platform can provision access to any data in terms of custom attributes to that data, if multiple 211 data owners have data in the platform, we can then enable through the platform that multiple data owners' data is provided in one point of access to a partner or through a website to power some type of project or contract or anything like that. This is currently the use case being used by many 211s in California who are working together on a project. All use different systems, have used and are using the platform to actually facilitate their resource databases being accessible in one place. And then the third, certainly not the last thing that can happen, but the third example of something is that, again, all using the same technology, the platform can actually enable an improved online search experience for clients by allowing you to customize how things are organized and create a different view of your data than what, for example, your call specialist might see within your system. So the screenshot on this slide is an example from, again, North Carolina, who is using the architecture of the platform to enable a much more user-friendly search than they previously were able to have by using some of those custom filter tools. So that was a really quick overview, because what you all are actually interested in is the details. So I'm going to introduce Andrew again and turn it over to him to actually take us through how all of this works. As a reminder, feel free to use the chat in Zoom with any questions or thoughts as we go along, and we'll help answer and or moderate them. So Andrew, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to you.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Rachel, for that introduction. And for those of you who are looking at my picture that Rachel introduced about 5 minutes ago and wondering why I have not aged in about 10, 15 years, that's because that's when that picture was taken. So thank you, everyone, for your time today. You should be looking at my screen now, which will have several slides on the left-hand side and showing National 211 Data Platform. The work really of today is to walk you through at more of a technical level, the national data platform. And I, to be honest, kind of struggled with this over the last week to think about how to present a technical view, if you will, of the platform, but not get too deep into the weeds, because the platform itself has many moving parts. And what I'm going to suggest today is that I walk you through a scenario in which we will essentially play the role of a couple of organizations within side of the 2-on-1 network. And we will walk you through some of the key features just by playing out some of these roles. What we won't get to today, if you're here to observe or to learn more about the business intelligence, what I would like to suggest is we set up a separate presentation in the future, and I'll walk you through that. So I'm just, for those of you who may be here and hoping to see a little bit about business intelligence, my apologies, we won't hit that today, but we're going to hit some other really important features. So what's the scenario we're talking about? So we've got this fictional 2-on-1 called 2-on-1 Bedrock, and 2-on-1 Bedrock is collecting data on programs and services located in Monterey, California, using iCarol. For those who may be coming in from Monterey or from California, we are using the 2-on-1 Monterey data to simulate 2-on-1 Bedrock. That's what you'll be seeing on screen shortly. Fred Flintstone is 2-on-1 Bedrock's data person. This is the business person. Fred doesn't have a deep technical background, but his colleague Wilma does. So Wilma is 2-on-1 Bedrock's technical person. So 2-on-1 Bedrock is really interested in joining the national data platform for two important reasons. The first is that 2-on-1 Bedrock would like to launch a new website for public search and for self-referral to the community resources that 2-on-1 Bedrock manages. The second is that Bedrock has come across a really important opportunity that requires data to be combined from areas such as Green Bay. So 2-on-1 Wisconsin has data that 2-on-1 Bedrock would like to join with and be able to present to pursue a new opportunity. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through 5 key steps, starting with 2-on-1 Bedrock, who is not registered on the platform yet. So we're actually going to walk you through 2-on-1 Bedrock, registering on the platform, accessing keys, using those keys to stand up a website, and then finally to combine their key with another key in order to merge the data of 2-on-1 Bedrock and 2-on-1 Wisconsin. So in this first step, we're going to register 2-on-1 Bedrock. So Fred has requested and received a code already to register 2-on-1 Bedrock on the platform. Fred goes to the website us.2on1.technology, which is a live website which you can go to register 2-on-1 Bedrock. Fred has received, through that registration process, an automated email confirming that 2-on-1 Bedrock has been registered and being provided with an admin account that allows Fred to do some of the things that you're going to see in this demo. Fred also, and I won't demonstrate this piece, but Fred has reviewed that information that has come to him and has downloaded the resource CSV formatted export from their resource management system, which is iCarol. 2-on-1 Wisconsin, as what you will hear later, is on VisionLink. So, but when we're talking about 2-on-1 Bedrock, their base system is iCarol, which they have already downloaded the resource file from. So let's walk through this particular scenario. So keeping in mind that 2-on-1 Bedrock has not yet registered, they've walked through the code, and I'm here at us.2on1.technology. Fred has already requested and received a code. So Fred is coming to the page, register your organization, and starts to walk through the form that must be filled out in order to register 2-on-1 Bedrock on the platform. So Fred will choose the country that 2-on-1 Bedrock is located in. They use iCarol for their resource management system. Fred will identify himself as the individual who has permission to register the organization on the platform. 2-on-1 Bedrock would like to see their information when we attribute their data on the platform, and this would be in things such as the website or in the source or attribution of data that is shared with other organizations, Bedrock would like to be known as 211 Bedrock, and it'll show up on sites such as data contributed by 211 Bedrock. The last thing is Fred will need to enter in the code that was sent to Fred in the previous step. So we'll just go ahead and make up a code here. And then the individual who will receive the email with the administration information, the temporary password, so on and so forth. And that'll be flintstone@211.bedrock. Just making this up. These aren't real email addresses, obviously. And then they're going to go ahead and submit the registration form. So we're going to assume that this has already happened and we've set Fred up on the system. So let's come back now to our steps. So step 2 now. So Fred has received the administration email. You can see try and blow this up. Now I can't really blow it up here, but sorry about that. Let me get this set back up here. So Fred has now received the administration information, and Fred has gone into their base system, iCarol, and has exported the CSV formatted resource file. So this, for those of you who are on iCarol, you'd be very familiar with the zipped file of CSV files that make up your resource database. Fred is going to log into the platform's SFTP service. So this is just a secure file transfer service that's available for uploading your 211 resource data. And this is an important step because part of what we've committed to for the platform is that you're in full control of your data. So this first step is something that you're in full control of in the sense that you've downloaded your data from iCarol and you're choosing to upload to the platform your data. This is how you control that. Everything from this point forward, as you'll see, is fully automated. So the file's being downloaded, and then when uploaded, as mentioned, basically what happens behind the scenes, and I won't demonstrate this today, it's just a lot of technical stuff, but essentially what happens is a workflow that's triggered. And that workflow is essentially a process where files are extracted, the data is transformed and loaded into a final structure in which the data is managed. We use the open referral format for those who are wondering what that final structure is, and we've extended the open referral format in order to accommodate some of the unique needs of the 211 system. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that now. So we're going to come over now to the SFTP service. Fred has received his admin account and password to log on to the SFTP service. So we'll go ahead and we will log in. And Fred has access to these two report folders, or file folders rather, reports and resources. Reports will be for another presentation, but the reports folder is for the upload of contact data or other data that's used for the business intelligence system. We won't be touching that today. We're going to concern ourselves here with the resources folder. So we open up the resources folder, and we can see that Fred hasn't uploaded anything to date. So we're going to go grab that zip file from the desktop. And it's not really that important for the presentation, but we're just going to pretend we're grabbing that file folder here, which is difficult to find when you have way too many things on your desktop. Here we go. And then we go ahead and we upload. So I've relabeled this a zip file with a second P in it, just so we don't trigger any workflows during this presentation. But now what we've done is essentially uploaded the zip file that's being downloaded from iCarol. And again, this will be for 211 Monterey data. So we're basically faking out 211 Bedrock using 211 Monterey data. So now that we've uploaded the data into the SFTP service, a number of workflows are happening behind the scenes, and within anywhere from 30 minutes to 24 hours, all of that data is going to be extracted from the source system, which is iCarol, and imported into the national data platform. So that takes us to our next step. So the next step is, okay, we've uploaded this data. All of this magical ETL stuff that you talk about has fired, but how do we actually get to see the data inside of the platform? Well, this is what we've built the developer portal, or the National Data Platform API Developer Portal for. So in this particular step, Wilma, who, again, as a reminder, Wilma is the technical person at 211 Bedrock, is going to log into the National Data Platform. Wilma has already signed up and received a developer account on the National Data Platform. So Wilma's going to log in and take a look at a pre-configured product for 211 Bedrock. And what we mean by product is that a product is essentially a collection of APIs, and you'll learn a little bit more about this when we walk through the product itself. But there's two key products that or APIs rather, that we've added to the 211 Bedrock product. There's an export API, which is an API that's being built so you can bulk download your data from the national platform. So in other words, 211 Bedrock can pull down all of the data in the format that it is used to store the data on the platform in bulk. This could be helpful if you're trying to work with a development partner, or you want to share your data or a portion of your data with another party. The search API, which is what we'll be demonstrating today in more detail using a website and the API interface, is what allows an individual to be able to do keyword and guided searches and do some other things such as filter that data. So we'll be demonstrating that. But the main point here is that a product is a way to kind of organize access to an API. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. So here we are at the 211 National Data Platform, and we're going to sign in as Wilma Flintstone. Go ahead, sign in. And if my system gets any slower, we'll extend this presentation to about 2 hours. And once logged into the platform, keeping in mind we're logged in as Wilma here, Wilma has access to certain things in the platform. So we're going to go over first, and there's a lot here to walk through, which we'll leave for another day. But let's take a look at the products that are available in the platform. The ones that concern us today is 211 Bedrock and 211 Bedrock 211 Wisconsin. I'll come back to this product in a moment. 211 Bedrock Demo. Let's take a look at this product. As mentioned, the product contains two APIs. There's an export API and a search API. So an API is nothing more than a door in which to knock on and bring back data. And there are a number of things in which you can do when you're knocking on the door, such as submit filter values and keywords, those kinds of things. Things that really don't matter too much for today's presentation, but an API is nothing more than basically a door to your data. So let's first take a look at the export API. This is something I'm only going to present here, and we'll move on to the search API. So on the export API, which, keeping in mind it's a bulk API, here Wilma has access to her keys. So we've already provisioned a key to this product. So Wilma's key here we'll use for 211 Bedrock Demo. And what we'd like to do is just bring back a couple of records. So we'll remove the page size and add it back in. Those of you with a more technical background, we're just basically adding a parameter for page size in the query string and then adding the value of 2. And we'll just go ahead, and because this is already pre-configured, it's wired as a product to 211 Bedrock's data. When we go ahead and we send the call in, what we will get back from the results is the first 2 records. And sorry, my system is quite slow today. What we'll get back is the first 2 results of the API. So what we get back is basically an array, which is nothing more than a list. So we get basically back a list, which will have the first 2 results of, and keep in mind, this is 211 Monterey's data for Bedrock. We've got 358 organizations that make up 201 Monterey's database. So of course, there'd be many more services, many more locations, but we have an organization with a list of its services and a list of the locations for this organization. So here, this particular organization that we're looking at is Big Sur Health Center. And the first service that's in the list of services associated with this organization is outpatient healthcare. So what we have is basically a full data set for that organization and all of its programs and services, including things such as the taxonomy terms, the eligibility, documents required, hours of operation. All of this data is formatted in a way that it can be consumed by external data users. And by external data users, I mean programmers who are going to build websites, which you'll see in a second. But essentially, this is the raw data. And keeping in mind, this is Wilma. This is the technical person that's coming in here. So Wilma's looking at this and saying, okay, I get this. So we've got the first two records come back. That's the export API. Let's move over now to the search API. So we're going to come back up into products. And let's take, again, a look at 201 Bedrock's demo product. Now we're going to move over to the search API. So the search API is a rich API in the sense that we have built a lot of logic to support keyword and guided searches. And you're going to see this in action in a second when Fred actually takes a look at this data through a website. But for Wilma, Wilma has a technical background, of course. So Wilma's understanding what this open API definition is describing, which is what the search API does, which essentially is saying in short, you can submit keywords or topics in order to return back resources close to the location in which you enter, which I'll demonstrate in a moment, as well as the different responses that can come back. Let's do a quick keyword search using the user interface to the developer portal. We'll make sure that we're using the proper key. So we're using 201 Bedrock's key. And let's just search for food with around the Monterey area. And let's make this 10 miles. So let's look for all food resources within 10 miles of Monterey, California, and bring back the top 10. We're going to sort the results by most relevant to least relevant. And there's a number of other filters that we could apply to the query, but we won't do that. We'll keep it just to those few things here. So we'll go ahead and we'll send that in. And back comes 73 results match. So in other words, out of all of these services, so I think we saw about, what was there, about 200 or 300 organizations for Monterey. So 2 to 3 services on average per organization. We're probably looking at about 1,000, 1,200 services that are in the 201 Bedrock database on the platform. And we have matched on 73. So skipping over a bunch of the metadata that can be used to create filters or facets in the UI, we can see that the first result that came back was, and these are formatted in a service at location format, meaning that every service at a particular location comes back in the listing. We can see that we've brought back the service Emergency Food Assistance Program Pacific Grove. Keep that in mind when we go to take a look at the website, which will bring back similar records. And then all of the information that can be used in order to present search results on a website. So we've brought back essentially what would be the equivalent of if you did a Google search, you bring back results, you bring back the top 10, you click on a result, and then you've brought to the details of what you clicked on. So in other words, here, if we were to take a look at the first record we've brought back is for Emergency Food Assistance Program Pacific Grove. We have a ID service at location. So this is a unique identifier, which we can then grab and then call into the return a service at location, which will provide, and this only takes one parameter value, which is the actual ID service at location, We enter that in and we bring back all the details for that particular organization. So this is the situation in which, again, using Google results as the analogy, you search for food, the Google results come back and you select one of those results. This is what you would get, would be the details that would present in the website. Okay, so let's jump over to the next step. So Fred is interested in seeing this data, but really has no clue what we just looked at. Wilma has tried to show this to Fred. Fred's like, don't really get it, can't visualize this, and for good reason. If you're not a technical person and you don't understand JSON and how data looks, and these are things that really only a developer understands. So Fred needs to look at this data through a user interface. So what Fred's going to do is he's going to activate the 201 US theme that's being built as part of the National Data Platform. We have a theme that's being built for activation in WordPress and can be stood up quickly using the API key that you'll see in a moment. But basically that 201 Bedrock key can be used to visualize the data. So Fred's going to search for food, just like Wilma did. And then basically, I'm not going to demonstrate the guided search, but you could do the guided search with food as well. And then after that, after Fred visualizes the same data, then Fred's gonna go in and try and do a search for food around Green Bay and find out, I can't get Green Bay records because that is the property. Those are the resources that belong and are managed by 211 Wisconsin. So Fred then is going to reach out to 201 Wisconsin and ask if they can share data together, and I'll simulate that for you. Okay, so in this particular step then, let's demonstrate. So Fred's going to come over to and we're looking at the 201 US theme. I'm only going to show a little part of it today, but basically what we have here is a theme that it's being activated, but there's no data coming through. So if we were to do a search for food around the Monterey area, type Monterey, California, and we do a search, we're not going to have any results come back because we haven't permitted the application, the WordPress theme, the 201 theme, to access this data. So logging into the back end. So for those of you who are familiar with WordPress, we're simply just looking at the dashboard for WordPress, but inside the 201 US theme, which we've activated. So for those of you who are familiar with themes, we've built a custom theme called 211 US. And this essentially, this looks like the front page, just a screenshot of the front page. But essentially, this theme has already been activated in WordPress. And within that theme, we have a number of options that can be configured, including the API key. So the API key is what permits the 201 Bedrock data to flow through the theme. And I'll take questions and happy to have a bigger discussion about this when I finish the demonstration, which will be just a couple more minutes. So where do we get this key? Well, let's pop back to the developer portal here. And keeping in mind, we're still logged in as Wilma. We're going to go up into our profile, Wilma's profile, and Wilma has access to two keys. She's got the 201 Bedrock demo key and the 201 Bedrock Wisconsin key, which we'll come back to in a second. So let's go up to this 201 Bedrock key. And here's our key. We're going to grab this key here, copy it over, and come back into our options in the back end, pop that in, hit update. And if everything has gone correctly, we should be able to come back now to the theme, hit search again. Food. If you're wondering why Whitby's coming up, this has picked up my IP address and filled it in automatically with the actual location. So we'll hit Monterey, California, go ahead and do a search. And here we have the results come back for 211 Bedrock, i.e. the Monterey data with a map on the right-hand side. And if we want to click through one of these results, you'll notice at the very top, which record came back? Well, exactly the very first record that Wilma saw when she issued the same search, which was for food within 10 miles of Monterey, California. We go ahead and click on that record, and now we're brought back to the details, which is the user interface view of submitting the service at location ID, which if you recall in the developer portal, we sent in this ID and brought back this data. This is just formatted in a, obviously through a website in a way that's just more easily readable. So what we've done here is search for food around Monterey, California. And now Fred's thinking, okay, well, I've got this opportunity now, but I need data from Green Bay. So Fred goes in, types in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and loads up a search, and no results come back. Well, that's the way the system's designed, because we created a product for 211 Bedrock with a key associated that only brings back 211 Bedrock's data. So next step, last step. Fred contacts Bam Bam Rubble, the data administrator at 211 Wisconsin, to discuss combining 211 Bedrock and 211 Wisconsin data together to pursue a funding opportunity. 211 Wisconsin agrees to combine the data with 211 Bedrock in a new product. That product is being provisioned. You already saw it in the portal, 211 Bedrock / 211 Wisconsin / demo. So that's the name of the product, which has its own API key available with it. Keeping in mind that 211 Wisconsin is managing its data in VisionLink, and this is one of the key promises of the platform, is that regardless of where you manage your data, the base system, we will take care of the heavy lift in the transformation of that data and putting it into a common structure and format. So regardless of whether it's coming from iCarol, Refer, VisionLink, or any one of the other systems out there, we create the data in a standard structure and format that allows for data to be combined together. So let's take a look at what that means. So we come back here into the developer portal, and I would go back up into Wilma's profile. Wilma has now access because 211 Bedrock and 211 Wisconsin have agreed to combine their data together. We've created a product on the back end. And now we're going to go and grab the key for that particular product, come back up into the WordPress theme options. We'll go ahead and we'll just update it with the new key. And when we come back and we submit the exact same search in the user interface, remember we brought back no results for Green Bay before, go ahead and now we have results for Green Bay, Wisconsin, in this particular case, a food pantry with details. And just to show there's no tricks up our sleeves, if we now go back and search for food around Monterey, here's the Monterey data. So what we've demonstrated in this presentation is everything from setting up the 211 Bedrock organization, the national data platform, creating several products that allow for the 211 Bedrock to come back alone, or the 211 Bedrock data to come back with another 211's data, all of course, which was set up behind the scenes with agreements between those two organizations. We're just facilitating that, that combination of data. And then being able to launch a product such as a website, which is one of the many services that you can implement on top of the platform using the platform data. So just as a recap, we have gone through the scenarios of registering your 211 on the platform, contributing your resource data to the national repository, accessing your resource data using the developer portal, searching for your resources in a user interface, that 211 US theme in WordPress, and then combining your resource data with a 211 another 2-on-1's data. So hopefully this has been helpful to give you a sense of some of the uses and how you get started with the national platform. And at this time, I'd like to just open it up for any questions that either came in through chat, or if you want to come off of mute, happy to answer any questions you might have. And Josh or Rachel, you may have been monitoring the chat window. If you could help us get started here.
Yeah, Andrew, go ahead, Rachel.
We all want to help. There actually weren't any questions during your presentation, but there is one now, which is why the data you demonstrated from Monterey has a table within the search results, but the Wisconsin data did not. So I think the question is about the difference in the structure or contents of the data that is returned.
Yeah, and so the quick answer to that is that we respect the formatting that comes in from the base system. So that would have been HTML that was brought in from the 2-on-1 Monterey data set, which would have basically HTML formatting of the data, which is why you had that look, that table look. And then the 2-on-1 Wisconsin data does not bring in or does not format their data in that way. So we kind of respect the data that is brought in from the base system. For those of you wondering if that can be changed, yes, of course it could. You would pull that data back through your API, and then you would strip out the tags, for example.
And Andrew, the next question is if the database schema has been updated to reflect the recently released HSDS 2.0 format.
Yes and no. We're actually ahead of the 2.0 format. So there are some recent changes with respect to recognizing or handling multiple taxonomies. And there's been a few other changes as well. So we're actually a little bit ahead of that in the sense that we have already brought in the taxonomy data and we use the AIRS taxonomy. So it really wasn't applicable what came in under 2.0. The goal, though, is to stay in alignment with the HSDS specification as it evolves. And of course, we'll have to evaluate each iteration of that specification to make sure that it actually supports our needs and use cases as a 2-on-1 system. But I was active in that conversation, and there were some good changes that were recently made to the Open Referral HSDS spec. And so generally, yes, we are in alignment, but we've gone a little bit beyond what's in the HSDS specification to support some of the unique requirements of the 2-on-1 system.
So the next question is, I was gonna try and translate it, but I think maybe just reading it to you, Andrew, is the best way. So the question is whether the schema, the database schema and or the API available publicly or via licensing of some sort. And I guess I'm not sure, and need maybe if you're able to come off mute and elaborate on the question, that may be helpful for Andrew and myself.
Yeah, and I can start by first saying that I think what's being asked for is, so the database schema. So no, the database schema is not publicly accessible. I'd be happy to speak with whoever's asking the question, obviously has a pretty deep technical background about how we organize the data. But essentially, you'll recognize the database schema if I was to show it to you. It's basically the open referral format. So it's got a schema with agencies connected to sites and locations, so on and so forth. We have a database model that supports that. Happy to walk you through that. That's not publicly available. What is publicly available through the developer portal is access to our API specifications. So for the, as I demonstrated, the 2-on-1 Bedrock product, and we dove into the, say, the search application, you can you can access the Open API specification for search and for access from the developer portal. And if there's additional information that's required that maybe doesn't come out through that Open API specification, which you can kind of see in action here. It's the Open API specification being consumed by the API, so you can kind of reverse engineer it from there. But if you need more information, happy to share with you that specification. That is not something that is that needs to be protected. That's something, in fact, that would probably help developers work with the APIs on the portal.
Thanks, Andrew.
You're welcome. Was that Tim?
Ned.
Okay. Hi.
Yeah. Thank you.
So the next question from Skylar, Andrew, is about the tagging and topic system as demonstrated for the California resources. And so the question is whether that's a preliminary move towards optionally using tags instead of taxonomies if someone were interested in doing so.
That's a great question. Yeah, I know Skylar well. Yeah, great question. So what we currently have is we have topics and subtopics that reflect the AIRS taxonomy. So we use level 1, level 2 of the AIRS taxonomy to build our topics and subtopics. So i.e. level 1 is our topics, level 2 is our subtopics associated with those topics. So we have that available already, so you can filter on topics and subtopics in the data. That's one of the filters actually on the Search API. Moving forward, and this is, I think, the answer to the question, is tagging of data, which essentially allows you to pick resource records and assign them specific tags that you can use as your own set of filters. We've actually just implemented this for a project in California. And to give you an example, we use the tag kinship, which I can't demonstrate here through a UI. It's another UI that we have. But basically, you submit a tag equal to kinship, and you can do one of two things with that tag. You can either filter all the records by this tag. So the base system, I think, that was used for most of this data in that particular project was iCarol. So they created a custom field in iCarol called tags, and then they just applied the tag kinship. We picked that up in the repository, and we can use that to do one of two things. We can actually filter, so it's almost a custom filter, if you will, on the tag equal to kinship. We've also created the logic to not filter on the tag, but to boost the results. So in other words, if you were to filter data on kinship, you would bring back a much smaller number of records. Let's say you're searching for food and you want to find all records that were tagged with kinship, you might bring back a couple of records. But if you want to boost the results on a search where you're searching for food that's tagged with kinship, a boost would basically bring the records, the food records that are tagged with kinship, to the top of the list. So it's kind of a re-ranking of the search results. So we've got that logic embedded into the platform itself. Hopefully I answered the question, Tyler, or Skylar rather. If I didn't answer the question, you have my number. Just reach out to me. Happy to talk it through more.
Awesome. And then the next question, this is the only one so far that I actually fully know the answer to, but Andrew, I'll let you answer it. When resources data, so the resource file, is shared or uploaded to the platform, is it always a full refresh of all the resource data?
For that particular organization?
Yes.
Yeah, we do rip and replace. So just because of the size of the records, I know, like in today's technology and infrastructure, thousands of records it's not an issue. So to keep things clean, what we do is a simple rip and replace. So you upload, and this is how the data typically gets exported, especially from the system I demonstrated today, the base system being iCarol. You basically just export your records. We'll rip out all of the records in the repository for your organization and replace them with whatever you pushed up into the SFTP service. So the answer is yes, we do rip and replace. We don't do updates.
Any other questions or any questions from folks who are not dialed into the chat, but maybe on the phone and want to unmute and ask a question? Okay, it looks like we do actually have a couple others in the chat. Andrew, is there a webhook connection support for third-party services?
I'm gonna have to make some assumptions about that question.
That
No,
was
there's
also from
not.
Skylar, if that's helpful.
Yeah, Skylar's asking all the tough questions. No, there is not, but I think I understand what Skylar's, what the kind of the use case is there. I think that would be a great addition. And maybe this is actually my opportunity to say, we're kind of at the very start of this journey that although I've demonstrated some functionality today, we're going to evolve this platform. And we're going to evolve that platform from the feedback and the input we get from the 2-in-1 systems and the partners and funders that are asking you to support them. So things like a webhook where we push out to say, hey, there's new data here, and then your system will come and grab that data, which would be like one use case of a webhook. That would be a great addition, Skylar. So thanks for the question, but no, not currently available, but we should think about that in the future.
Awesome. And then a question about, and I know we're almost at time. So question, is there consideration being given to using or enabling common language search terms beyond the official AIR's use references? And the follow-up is the idea to create them as tags and tag them to one or more taxonomies, or is there some other method?
Oh, what a great question to end on, because this is actually part of the work that we're doing right now, which is to create your own custom topics and subtopics. And you can do that in one of two ways. So the first way is you're able to create a set of and name your topics and subtopics however you want to do that. And then you can identify AIR's taxonomy terms that are associated to that. So you can actually build your own custom set of topics and subtopics and leverage the index data that you already have in your system. So that'll be one way, and then you would expose that custom set of topics and subtopics on your website. We're in the process of actually building that. The second action, this relates back to Skylar's question, is the tagging of records. We're in the process of creating a system where you can actually create your own set of tags and then tag specific records. So you can create, in other words, your own filter set, which I described as the kinship project example. So that's where we're at with that. Stay tuned. We're probably about 2 to 3 months out on that one, but it's on our active development list.
Awesome. Great. So we are right at time. The very last question that Nita had asked about which or how many systems does the platform support? So I'm going to answer both versions of that question, just because others I think probably have similar ones. So we have not yet promoted the platform out to the 2-in-1 network such that we have a large number actively using it, because we are, as you can see, and as you've heard from Andrew, still in a development phase. So there are a couple who are using the platform or pieces of the platform to facilitate things that were urgent needs, but we haven't yet opened it up for wide usage. The other sort of answer in terms of which systems it supports. So far, there is an ingestion and standardization capability for most of the commonly used database vendors in the 2-in-1 network. So iCarol, you've heard Andrew talk about, but we've also worked on a process for WellSky, Refer, and are in the works with VisionLink as well. So the goal certainly in the very near future is to get to a point where all of the systems that 2-in-1s use are sort of equivalent in terms of their ability to come onto the platform. If anyone has additional follow-up questions, please feel free to send them our way. And as Andrew said, we can always host a follow-up call or any additional one-on-one topical calls. But Andrew, I'll leave it to you to wrap us up. And I really appreciate everyone joining.
Yeah, thanks everyone for your time. This is the way that we would like to introduce features in the future. So keep your eyes out for invitations to other presentations. And if you have any specific questions, technical questions, or business questions, feel free to reach out to me by email. If you don't have my email, just reach out to Rachel and she'll provide that to you. But thank you for your participation, and always great to, at least virtually, see or hear people.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.